your girl Aleesha here, and welcome to another episode of Talking with Aleesha. So for any of you guys that don't know, Talking with Aleesha is just a little series that I have where I invite extraordinary women who we don't really see in the media, or we don't get to hear their stories enough. And it's just I wanted to create a more authentic way to showcase all these like amazing women. And today I have Mahmoudat. Did I pronounce it right? Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. I should have confirmed it before we even started.
Nah, it's alright. I've had Mahmoud before, which is my brother's name, and you're like,
yeah,
it's the end.
It's a really nice name. I've never actually heard it. It's really sweet.
Thank
and
you.
It's nice. So how are you today?
I am doing well. It's Friday, so I'm happy.
yeah, it's good. But the weather is not nice at all. Well, I don't know about it. You're in London, right?
Yeah.
But it's probably the same.
I think it's decent in London, but we had a couple of weeks where it was really hot, didn't we? And now it's kind of,
No, now we're having storms. I don't know. I'm from Manchester.
Storms?
Yeah, there was literally a thunderstorm last night. It was chucking it down. And even this morning, it was literally chucking it down.
Right, that's completely different weather.
Okay. Okay, never mind. That's why I was like, this weather is not good. It's literally chucking it down. No, it's not good.
Yeah.
But how are you today, sir? Is everything good? Yeah.
Yes, I'm doing good.
So I wanted to introduce you. So Mahmoudat has this really cool blog, and it's just it's a good way to, I just spoke to her about this, it's a good way to integrate Islamic teachings with our everyday life, especially as youth. I feel like a lot of Muslim youth really don't relate to Islam in many ways. I've seen it in many people where they kind of distance, I guess it's not that much in the media, obviously, but even around peers, around work, school life, it's not really presented as much. And just seeing blogs like yours that integrate those kind of two worlds, because obviously you've grown up in Britain, so you know the experiences and you know how to relate it well. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted to invite you on today, just so we could discuss that. And how did you start it, and why did you go for that Muslim angle as well? Because you could have made your blog about anything. I guess you could have made it more about your race, about your culture.
Yeah.
So you do that as well, but you also, I feel like it's a lot focused on your Islamic side as well.
Yeah. It's so weird because it's such an interesting kind of observation, because a lot of times when I get invited to speak, it tends to be a lot on Islam, and I never think of my blog as being an Islamic blog, if that makes sense.
It isn't your typical Islamic blog. That's fine. It's not like you're telling people this, you should do this. It's literally your life experiences.
Yeah, exactly. Because I don't want to put myself as someone that's knowledgeable.
Yeah, I get what you mean. Yeah,
me living my life and sort of sharing reflection based on that. But it's so interesting because the blog didn't actually start off as a way of me sharing Islamic based reflection, if that made sense.
Okay.
So I started the blog in my second year of university when I failed it. And I was having a mental health crisis. And I thought, oh my God. And I'd always loved writing.
Yeah.
And I think writing was just kind of helping me to figure out my way. Because I think up until that point, I was a perfectionist to the point of crazy, to say the least. And it was just something that I never envisioned happening. And so when it happened, it was a sort of liberation, as sad as it was also a sort of liberation that I thought, okay, I'm going to start this blog and then write about mental health, because my first 2 years at uni were honestly an absolute nightmare. So I thought I'm going to start the blog and write about my mental health experiences, and then just also write about how I was coping with everything. Yeah. So it started off with just me sharing university experiences. And then I suppose because uni has also been such a pivotal time for my relationship with Allah. So that's how the Islamic element kind of comes in. I think I suppose it's just a part of my day-to-day life. So naturally it is going to feed into the blog anyway. Yeah. So
it's kind of therapy for you in a way, to release. Yeah. So you're just writing your thoughts down.
Exactly. That's it. Just pour it all out.
So it's really good. So how many years have you been doing it now? Has it been?
Oh my God. So I think 4 years. but it hasn't been consistent. So like normally when I was at uni, I would take like half of the year off when I would be at uni, or like 9 months off, and then I would be blogging during the summer period, or like just doing it periodically. So it hasn't been a consistent 4 years. It's just been take a break, come back, take a break, come back. Yeah. So but it's a good space to have.
I completely understand your feeling, because with me it's been the same. So I do these kind of series, I do like online stuff, and then I take a break, because I feel like the good thing about having your own, like as you said, your own spaces, you can literally take space from that, like you own it, so it's whenever kind of you want to. It's that kind of thing.
Yeah, you have that control and freedom of, I can come back to it whenever I want to. So yeah, it's
and it's interesting to see a lot of people that I've like invited onto this show. They don't have like, so you did accounting. Are you doing accounting now? Are you like working? Yeah, and so many people, what they started off as, so accounting, they go into something completely different.
Yeah,
which is cool. So what do you do now? What's your like?
So at the moment, I'm like a freelance writer, but that's because I'm transitioning it. So I'm moving to another country, inshallah, by the end of the year.
Inshallah.
So I took a break. But when I got out of uni, I was working in corporate social responsibility, because that was the only area of accounting that I found interesting in my final year. So I was like, okay, I don't want to be an auditor or work in tax or anything like that. So corporate social responsibility was a perfect balance between like
the two,
the two worlds that I'm interested in. So I did that for 6 months in a law firm, and then I've just been writing for like a data privacy company for the past like 3 months or so. So it's been chilled lifestyle.
That's good. I'm kind of like the same. For me, it's hard to kind of integrate the two. I did engineering, and just I'm into like, similar to you, into like the non-profit or doing something that has a bit more meaning to it, and kind of integrating the two worlds and kind of finding like the perfect job for me has been an experience throughout this after graduating as well. So how's life after graduation? Is it what you expected, or was it or finding like the perfect job or that kind of thing? Because I see a lot of people struggle with it as well.
I think it's definitely like a bit of a challenge. If you don't go immediately into a grad scheme, you do have a bit more leeway to try and figure things out and experiment. But I think that also comes with a lot of uncertainty, where you think to yourself, oh, am I doing the right thing? Am I on the right path? Is this where I should be? But I think for me, it was really good that I was working immediately after I finished uni, because it just kind of like, I needed that so like direct pathway, and it was such a good learning experience that I think it helped me to figure out what I want in a job and what I don't want in a job. So that was like my immediate, like what I wanted immediately after graduating uni, just to like be somewhere and try and assess like what it is that I really wanted from a job. I think the past 6 months has also been interesting, because before I left the job that I was doing, I was like, oh, I really love remote working, but one thing is certain now, I do prefer the 9-to-5 lifestyle, because I think it just works so much better for me in terms of like the discipline. So like I think after a while I'm definitely gonna go back into like the traditional 9-to-5, but I think it's just been like, it's been a good learning experience after graduation, but it is filled with a lot of uncertainty as well, so you're having to juggle.
That's one advice I would give, like I guess graduates as well, like just don't think about too much about the job, especially because you're still young now, so it might not be permanent. It's not like you're stuck in the job, and just experiment the best routes, and the only way you can find the best route is from actual experiences and actually doing it as well.
And finding mentors as well. I think that's an absolute lifesaver. Like it's so valuable when you have people who, I suppose, like if you have like a projection of where you want to be, and you find someone who's already on that path, like the kind of help and advice that they can give you is absolutely just so helpful. So
true.
That's one thing I'd recommend as well.
So another thing that I wanted to ask was, how has it been growing up as like a Black British woman? Because if statistically it's like everything's marginalized against you, because you're Black, you're a woman, and you're a Muslim as well.
Exactly.
So how has that experience been? Have you just talk about that, living in Britain?
Yeah, it's weird because I lived in Nigeria for 12 years and then I moved over here.
Yeah.
So I think your first conception of being black, like you don't really have a conception of being black until you move to a country like this.
Yeah.
And then, like through interactions, you're like, oh, things are different for sure. And I think especially, I think school-wise, there isn't so much of a focus on it. It's just because, it's like everyone's sort of, you're like an individual just navigating that space. I think it's when you're particularly in the workplace that is like it's a bit more apparent in your interactions with people. Like I was just having a conversation with a friend yesterday because we went to this VC accelerator program and we were the only two people of color in the room. And when she was talking about diversity and inclusion, we both looked at each other and we almost started laughing because diversity and inclusion for these firms is most of them, it's about gender and sexuality. Like there's no concept
of race
like race. Like even in the firm that I was working in, I think last year was the first year they'd had like a Black History Month, and even then it was spearheaded by like someone that was an associate that was Black. So it's just all of these things that you just see that people don't have concepts of, and even like in your interactions, like some of the language that people will use, you're just like, maybe you should have thought about this twice. So those kind of situations, it becomes apparent. But I suppose the major thing is like figuring out how to navigate those spaces without losing your confidence. Because again, like one thing, like when I was having a conversation with my friend yesterday after we were leaving, she was just talking about how beforehand she was really confident going into the spaces, but now I don't know what's happened over the past 6 months. It's just a lot more challenging. And I think in the past, I felt that as well, where you're thinking to yourself, oh, I'm definitely going to be the only Black person in this room. Or I'm definitely going to be the only Muslim in this room. Like all of those boxes. And it is a challenge of like figuring out how you navigate those spaces in a way that is authentic, that you don't feel I have to be someone that I'm not
and you
exist in those spaces.
And you don't want to be someone that always represents you don't want to have that burden on you as well, like, oh, I'm a representative for all Black people because I'm the only Black person here, so I need to be on my toes kind of thing. In those kind of spaces, then it's you get less opportunities to make mistakes even, or stuff like that, or people
scrutiny. Exactly. It's a bit of like, it is a mental burden to have to think about how you come across to people in spaces. And you notice that, I suppose, when you're in what we will call like a safe space with people that you're just used to like spending time with. There is a bit of a shift when you're in different places. So that's that.
And how in tune, I guess you were born in Nigeria, but when you came here, were you always really close with your culture and your faith? Do you think that's one thing that's stuck with you throughout your life?
Yeah, I think faith has been more of like a later development. Like when I was in sixth form was when I found, because you're like, we're born Muslim, but that process of actually choosing Islam for me happened when I was in sixth form. But I think culture-wise, I've always like felt really close to my culture. Because at home we speak our like native language. I'm surrounded by like lots of Nigerians, so it's fabulous.
It's good. I've always been close to my culture as well, but I think in primary school for me it was the thing where I don't know, I was kind of not ashamed of it, but I was trying to like kind of tone it down a little, that kind of thing. But no, as I've grown, and I've seen that with a lot of people as well, as they've grown up, they've become more close with their culture and more accepting of and proud of it even as well.
I think that's so important. I remember like way back in sixth form I used to wear like my traditional I honestly, like now that I think I'm like, oh my god, what was I thinking? I just felt so comfortable in them. I was like, I'm
that's good though. And I'm the same as you with that discovering God kind of thing. I think I discovered God really when I went uni. I went away, and because when you're at home, it's kind of like enforced on you. Well, not enforced, but like you're really like influenced in a way by your parents, or you have those restrictions, you can't do this, you can't do that. But when you're at university and you're by yourself, I think that's a real big test.
Exactly.
And then that's when I discovered, I actually do things on my own accord, and then that's when I started really enjoying it, where it wasn't like kind of pressurized on me as well. So
yeah,
so I feel
and that's
like
powerful.
So a lot of people go through that kind of thing as well.
Yeah.
And talking about Islam, I feel like this is a big issue in the UK, especially where Black people aren't really invited in Muslim spaces a lot of time, especially by Arabs and Asians and that kind of thing, or people. I've seen videos where people are like asking them questions like they're not actual Muslims kind of thing.
Oh my God, those videos are so off-putting. My God.
And then do you feel welcome in all Islamic places, in mosques and stuff? I guess in London it's really
it's
like
much
really
better.
Integrated, yeah.
Yeah, to an extent. I think London is a lot better than I can imagine like other areas in London, just because of like how multicultural it is.
Yeah.
But I think just overall there is like a huge issue of representation, which I'm glad like over the past couple of years has been something that's been like brought forward about just like when you have panel events, like events in mosques, like where is the representation outside of like Arab and like Asian Muslims? But again, it comes down to ignorance, right? Because when you were mentioning that like those kind of videos of this concept of, you know, like, can African people be Muslims or can Black people be Muslims? It's like a weird kind of like discovery for most people. So like a lot of it does come down to ignorance, which is quite sad. But I think there's a lot of work being done in that area.
It is,
and there's a lot more to be done. But I think it's just about us like being able to challenge like the people, the gatekeepers, so to speak, and making sure that they are uncomfortable.
Yeah, definitely.
Because, there's a level of comfort there. There's a level of comfort there of like, this is the way we've been doing things, and not seeing like just how important it is for like as a community, or if we're trying to build a community, then you can't shut people out.
No.
And then the other frustration I have is, on one hand, you have people shutting a particular community out of things, and then when we create, for example, like a Black only space, and there's so much uproar like, how dare you, this is not diverse, it's not inclusive,
or it's not like Islamic values, you should include everyone. And it was like, just like
where was the energy? So like, if you're not accepting people, of course they're going to create their own spaces. So definitely. I think there's a two-pronged approach there of like us making sure that we're creating spaces that cater to us, and then making sure that the spaces that already do exist are also inclusive. So
definitely. There was this talk by, I don't know, you might have heard it, Mustafa Briggs, where it was called Beyond Bilal, and that really that was, I didn't go because I couldn't, I think I was busy at that time, and then but the concept of it was really good, where a lot of Muslims use the Bilal excuse, like we are Islam is so they diminish the racism that already exists in our culture by quoting it from Islam, like, Bilal was Muslim, Islam is inclusive. So they don't look at what's happening now. And with his talk, I read the brief, like, it was like there's more prominent Black Muslims in Islam than just Bilal as well. Like people just know about Bilal and then use that as an excuse as well for their racism. Like, Islam's inclusive, what you on about? There is no problem regarding racism. So I thought that was really good, and like just people like you and like having these spaces and showing yourself and writing about your experiences as a Muslim, I guess it brings to light like all the diverse, so the people that used to be in charge of all these Muslim communities and stuff like that aren't really, it's kind of changing slowly, I guess.
Slowly.
It is changing. I can see it. And what about, like, were you part of the Islamic Society at your university and stuff like that? How was that?
And that's the point, I was also president of it. So that was interesting.
That's cool. You weren't just part of it, you ran it.
Great.
How was the experience with that? Do you think what was the experience with that?
I think with ISOCs there's always like a challenge with like the involvement of Black Muslims within the society. Like, I remember my first year. It's quite an interesting one actually, because I remember my first year because I got involved with the ACS, the African Society, and the Islamic Society, right? And I think it was weird because on one hand I didn't feel like completely at home in the African Society, just in terms of like the socials, if that makes sense. Like I didn't feel like I could participate in all the socials like as much as I would have wanted to.
Yeah, I was confused for a second. I was like, wait, you weren't felt part in the
No, I mean outside of the socials, because like, you know, in society there's like so much stuff that happens. So I loved like all the events that I attended and like the other things that I took part in. I think as far as like the social element of things,
I get what you mean.
I didn't feel like completely comfortable. And I think in the ISOC it definitely does cater to like the faith element and the Islamic element.
Yeah.
But then sometimes like the social element, or like at least like the kind of interaction that I would perhaps be able to have in the ACS isn't possible in like the Islamic society, just because of the fact that how many people in my year were actually involved, like there were like Black Muslims involved in ACS, I mean involved in
Islamic.
The ISOC. So there is a bit of a, I think for Black Muslims there is a bit of a, where do I fit into this kind of like category?
I guess most people in ACS were non-Muslim, but then in Islamic side, so it was like the two. Yeah, you couldn't really integrate the two.
Kind of merge it together. Because I guess like there were people in the community, both Black and non-Black, who were passionate about like changing the landscape of things, and you know we can like argue about how successful it was. But I remember in my second year, that was the year we had like an event on Black History Month in collaboration with the student union. So ISOC in collaboration with the student union, which is great because a lot of the times when it's Black History Month, a lot of ISOCs don't think about how it relates to them. You, of course, do have like Black Muslim population within your society. So introducing that was like really important. And then like in the later on year, we had like an event in collaboration with the Somali Society, which is quite interesting because what ended up happening, even though it was supposed to be like an educative experience for everyone, what ended up happening was most people that attended were Somalis, or they were like, just Black African people that attended. Like there weren't a lot of non-Black Muslims in that space. So again, it's that thing of like a lot of people not seeing how it relates to them, but every other event you expect people to be there. So I think that divide is still there slightly. It's a bit of a challenge. And it's hard to bridge completely. Is what I would say from my experience. But I think the most important thing in those spaces is making sure that you're listening to people and taking on board the input that they're giving. Like if people are not comfortable with like particular spaces, then you have to figure out how to make sure that they are comfortable. It's not a thing of we can just relax and say this is not my problem, because it absolutely is. So definitely. It's making sure within like ISOC leadership there's that understanding that it is important. I think like there was a sister that wrote an article in Amalia also about when we are raising money for causes, right? Like a lot of the times, like countries with Black Muslim populations are rarely ever on the list. Like ISOC raises money for every other country, but it's like little to no acknowledgement. So it's like minor stuff like that, and making sure that you're changing the culture to make sure that people feel like
valued and accepted.
In this space.
And plus, if you're with the leadership, what I with anything like any group or society, if the leadership's done right, the people have to change. So if you're raising money for Black countries, or if you're doing Black History Month and getting people involved, or making it a top priority in your agenda, even if people don't think it, or even if people don't want, they'll have to change as well. And that's the good thing with like good leadership as well. And I feel like it's a thing that isn't taught a lot in Islamics, ISOCs. With mine, a lot of times the ISOCs didn't delve into those kind of issues at all. It was more with ISOCs, there's a lot more controversy as well, and a lot of drama.
Unfortunately, sometimes. A lot of drama, which overshadows all the good work that's been done. Because honestly, like when I think about how much the ISOC is like achieves year in year out, like it's incredible that a student society, it's like, especially with charity week, that's like just mind-blowing when you're out of it eventually. But I think representation is so important. Like if you have an ISOC committee where it's just full of a particular nationality, like it's hard to see how things are going to happen. So that's why it's so important to have representations on those committees and like in the leadership spaces to make sure that at least the people who need to be in the room are in the room. Like, to filter into things. So
definitely. And ISOC's a really good way of Muslims just to get together, because obviously with uni you a lot of spaces, as you said, you can't really get into, and a lot of social spaces, especially at university, what I noticed was they were mostly catered to non-Muslims, like even like things like sports or societies that you don't really associate, like it shouldn't really be an issue. You couldn't really integrate, like I discovered that throughout my university life as well, where you can't really integrate, obviously, because of like the social side and that kind of thing, and it gets complicated.
Exactly. There was a fantastic sister in like I saw, mashallah, bless her. She created a netball team, and it has grown so much. Again, like you said, because the normal kind of like netball team, it wasn't really a space where you could be like, I could show and like she created this netball team, and it's like inter uni now. So like a lot of London unis take part in it on a weekly basis, and it's like stuff like that. It's like creative things like that you need, because on one hand it's like allowing sisters to get fit and healthy, and you're like also meeting people just across like different like unis as well. So it's so important that you have different ideas filtering in.
Definitely. So in the media, I see a lot, like especially from America, like police brutality against Black people, and all of the, there's like kind of, because of probably social media stuff like that, and there's TV shows, it's all kind of getting out there, but it's not at that level yet, I guess, for Britain. Like you don't really hear stories from Britain. Do you feel like the society and community in America reflects, like, do you think Britain has similar issues? One issue that did bring to light was Shukri Abdi's issue. Which for the people that don't know about, I'll just quickly explain, where it was just literally a 12-year-old girl. She's from Manchester. She's a refugee. She came to England, I think 2 years ago, and then she was found dead in a river. And the police haven't been looking into it at all. And there's so much evidence, and she was bullied at school, and that's where, you know, people are saying she was bullied, she was thrown in, and they're just saying that she was swimming in the pool, which does not make sense at all. Have you seen the rivers in the UK? Like, I don't know anyone that goes swimming in rivers. No Black person doing that. I don't know anyone that goes swimming in rivers. Have you seen the rivers? They're dirty. Plus, she wore a hijab as well. So does she take off her, like, it doesn't make sense at all. And then the police aren't looking into it, and they're just completely disregarding the case. And, you know, Madeleine McCain, like, her, there's been so much money invested into it. So stories like that, and it's sad, like, that people have to go out, protest, have to gain their attention. Not the job that they're meant to do by themselves. We, like, the community have to bring to life.
Has to bear that burden. I mean, like, it's just like, even beyond just Shukri Abdi, think about the Grenfell Tower. There's a legacy of institutional racism that we are not addressing in this country. That's like so in everyone's faces, but there's a reluctance to even talk about it, because a lot of people are like, it has nothing to do with race. And you're like, it has absolutely everything to do with race. And it's like, it's such a frustrating experience. Like, we do, like you said, like, in terms of like America, I can't even imagine, like, mentally what it feels like to exist in that kind of society. But I think even here as well, there's an extra layer of the fact that we're not even able to acknowledge what the problem is, or that the problem exists, right? Because it's like, oh, we don't have a race issue. You do. And there's like so many things that indicate to the fact that you do. I think one thing that I'm really grateful for, when I was at uni, I was involved with the NUS for a period of time, and like going to their conferences and just hearing about like people that are dying in police custody, and just like the lack of inaction on their part, on a nationwide level, it's astounding. But it's the fact that newspapers are not carrying these news or reporting it as they should. Even like for Shukri, if it wasn't for the fact that people within the community were making noise about it, I don't think it would have made the newspapers, because they just did not care. And it's like that constant, like, just having to prove to people that your life matters.
And constantly, on top of like the day-to-day burden that people of color or like marginalized people have anyway, the fact that you have to go out, take time out of your own time to raise issues that should be getting solved anyway, like even for the Grenfell Tower, if people didn't make that much noise, if people didn't protest, or if people didn't bring it to light, I don't even think like here in Manchester, around the UK, we would have even heard about it, or it just would have been another article like, oh, a building was on fire and that's it. That's
and a year on, there's still people within those communities that have not been housed. No one has still been held accountable for it, even though we are all aware of the complicity of the government in those. Like those, it's just like, I remember when it happened and just watching those videos and reading about how the residents in that tower were complaining, and they had warned them repeatedly that this is not safe, and to have them like die like that and not hold people accountable, I just think it's just like, it's a huge stain on this country, and that's the thing, like I don't think you can shame people who have no shame, unfortunately. I think that's the thing, that it's just this level of inaction, it's mind-blowing to say the least. So it's just,
I feel like Britain does also have its issues. It's just not gotten to the stage where it's so publicized. There's probably so many issues in day-to-day lives that don't get seen to light as well.
Like data collection is so important on these issues.
Definitely. And well, that's really all the questions I had. I wanted to know what your further like career aspirations are and what kind of impact you want to make. I know, and you're all for sustainable development goals as well. So what do you think? What do you think your future?
I am. So I think at the moment, like if I think about like in 5 years' time, I'm really, really passionate about writing. So inshallah, I would love to like write non-fiction and fiction books.
Inshallah.
I think like knowledge and history is so important in shaping people's identity. And I think for so long as well as people of color, like part of what we are denied of is like knowledge about our own history. When you think about school, like the stuff that we're taught isn't information that's sought to like enhance like our perception of ourselves. So I think definitely in like the creative pursuit. So like for me, I'm interested both in like on an institutional level, like how you make change, like cultural wise, but I'm also interested in like fiction and how that can change things. So someone that really inspires me was Chinua Achebe. I don't know if you know. Chinua Achebe, like Things Fall Apart, and just like what he meant like literature wise and what he was able to do through literature, that's like so inspiring for me. Because Chinua Achebe, like part of like why he started writing was in opposition to like the way that Europeans used to depict African people in literature as like savages and brutish people. So he kind of like came into the scene and just wrote about the human humanity. Exactly, for lack of a better word. And it's like just how you can humanize and change perception through literature and fiction is so interesting to me. So that's definitely an area that I think inshallah I would love to explore more. But I also do really love like working within organizations. I think I'm also interested in like leadership and institutional change. So that's something that I want to like study more in, like gain qualifications and just gain more experience. So it's like an exciting period, inshallah, as we navigate that. But I think like as far as like impact is concerned, it's very similar to the blog in just giving people the space to be seen and heard, and also just having the confidence to do whatever you want to do and knowing that you can do it. Like that's so important to me. So that's like the driving motivation.
I feel like everyone can make their own little impact. It doesn't matter how big or small. It just matters if you put positive and like good stuff out there and not,
we need more of it, honestly. There's a lot
of like
there's a lot of negative things out there. Exactly, like you definitely need more of that for sure. Definitely.
But it was so nice speaking to
you
you
too.
Do you have anything
else to say? Thank you so much, honestly. Great combo.
It was a good combo. It went by so quick.
I know, I'm like, oh my god, I'm always with you.